Welcome to the Cathedral's podcast, Crossroads. We explore the intersection of faith and the world in thought-provoking bi-monthly episodes featuring guests from around the world who are seeking to live faithfully in the public square. This is a safe space for tough questions around faith, politics, science, technology, and our responsibilities as citizens. Please join us as we search for a better way forward.
Welcome. It is so good to be back with you all here on Crossroads. And today we are joined by wonderful guests as we talk about AI and the future of work. So we welcome David Timis joining us from, are you in Brussels today? Is that correct?
Yes, Brussels, Belgium.
Well, welcome. It's so good to have you on the podcast with us today.
Likewise, pleasure to join you on this typical rainy summer day in Brussels, Belgium. Couldn't be better to be inside speaking with you folks.
Wonderful. Also joining us again is Dr. Sonia Komen. Welcome, Sonia. It's good to have you here.
Hello, Joe. Hello, David. Wonderful to be with you both.
Excellent. And Sonia, I'm assuming you're in DC today, as usual.
I am in DC, yes. I'm not at the cathedral at the moment, but I can see it from my window.
Wonderful. And I am joining from my home in Cleveland, Ohio. Well, David, we are really thrilled to talk to you today about a topic on which you speak a lot about, I understand, AI and the future of work. Will you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into this field, and what is really driving you around this topic?
Yeah, sure. So there's a lot to say of what got me to this point, and I'll try to do a ChatGPT summarized version of it. Throughout my maybe even younger than adult life, because I think I started before I was even 18, I was always fascinated in how you can augment yourself by learning different productivity hacks or personal development tactics that you can apply in your day-to-day life to be more productive, efficient, and at the end of the day, happy, which initially were just to help me go through my high school and then university studies and to just be more, as I said, efficient in my day to day life. But I always had this fascination with personal development connected to an activity, work, which we often forget is the activity that, other than sleep, that we spend the most time in our life doing. So the fascination with personal development was quite quickly connected with work and the future of work, as I like to call it. And then AI came later on during my probably first, let's say, longer term job in which I stayed, I think, 4 years, which is Google. I worked in Google and I started working at Google exactly the time that Sundar Pichai repositioned the company as an AI first company. So this is back in 2016. At the time, I was managing Grow with Google in Romania, so Google's largest digital reskilling initiative globally, and I was managing it in Romania, which in Romania was the biggest initiative of such kind. And all these dots were slowly connected in my brain and in my day-to-day activities. So this passion for personal development, this fascination, on around work, since it's such an important activity in anybody's life, and then the interest that is or has become in the last few years an obsession of how will AI impact the way we work and the way we live. So fast forward to today, and I am working towards this mission of mine of preparing people for the future of work in light of AI developments, but not just AI, technological developments in general. And I'm trying to come one step closer to fulfilling this mission every day by doing three things. One is my day to day job at generation.org, which is one of the largest employment nonprofits in the world, based in DC. That's where our HQ is. But we're a global organization that has operations in 17 countries on basically 5 continents, helping vulnerable people learn future-proof skills, and even more importantly for us, since we're an employment nonprofit, finding them meaningful work. So that's one way I fulfill this mission, and the other two ways, one is speaking about the impact of AI on work to corporates, to academia, to politicians, to think tankers, to basically the general public, both face-to-face and online through things I share, be it in my newsletter or in my LinkedIn feed, or in trainings and keynote addresses. And last but not least is my career coaching activity, which is the last piece of this sort of a three-pronged approach in which I tackle or I come closer to fulfilling my mission of preparing people for the future of work is guiding individuals as they transition in this very volatile labor market and volatile future, given the challenges ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you. I have so many questions. And that's what we're here for. So, I really want to unpack more about the generation.org and reskilling, thinking about especially how do we reach out and work with those who are underserved, those who don't have skills, minorities. So, talk to us a little bit more about that.
Sure, indeed, it's for me a great pleasure and a privilege to be able to do what I do at Generation. And what we do in a nutshell is we're an end-to-end provider. So we deal with everything from attracting learners, as we call the people we help, learners to our programs, which are between the ages of 18 to 65, so adults in one word. Coming from underprivileged backgrounds, so everything from minorities, refugees, single mothers with dependents, people who are stuck in some shape or form in their careers. We train them in hybrid programs that are usually between 3 to 4 months, online and offline. Offline only if it's a green program, so anything to do with solar panel installing or heat pump manufacturing, other green jobs that we prepare people for. Or in some cases, fully online if it's for a tech profession, since we prepare people, and I underline these professions already, tech and green, because these are our maybe largest profession categories we prepare people for. But we also prepare people for professions such as customer service and sales, healthcare, in particular nurses, and also skilled trades. Construction work is, in demand occupation across the world, and in many cases, actually one that can provide, at least for the foreseeable future, sustainable income. I mentioned duration, 3 to 4 months. To pick it up from there, we then place people into jobs, and we actually do that initial matchmaking, or not matchmaking, but at least the discussion with employers before we even start the program, which I think
Mm.
differentiates us a bit, given that many providers either just focus on reskilling and then wishing people good luck and find your own way, or if they do plan to help them with employment, they don't have these agreements in place. Whilst we, in most cases, in most countries, we already have indeed a list of employers that our learners are connected with and supported in transitioning to that into that position or the other. And then on top of all this, we offer mentorship to make sure that the people we help, given that their experience is not in the industry we place them in, many have been laid off from working in fulfillment centers, supermarkets, taxi drivers, all sorts of frontline work, and preparing them for futuristic jobs. At least that's how they appear for the learners in cloud engineers, data analysts, jobs for which they need a bit more than the technical and people skills we equip them for, also we equip them with. They also need the hand holding, which is natural for anybody in such a position to start a new career completely from scratch. And all of these steps I kind of tried to summarize in the last few minutes or really backed up by data. So it's very key for us to measure data and not just measure it on a graduate per graduate basis in the sense of how many people go for our programs. No, we also look at things such as depth and durability, two of our metrics that go on top of breadth, which look at employability metrics, how many people we've helped be employed, how long after the program, 3 months, 6 months, how many of them can save, how many of them report well-being metrics that have improved in years. And I say years because we do keep track of this up to 5 years post-graduation.
Mm.
So we now build a database of people's perspectives on life, basically before joining Generation in one of our programs, and after, as they found meaningful employment.
That's incredible. How does AI play into all of that?
Yeah, AI at Generation has started, like in most organizations, to play a bigger role only in the last 2 or 3 years, to be very honest. At Generation, we've started playing around with different AI tools to create content, to support our the efficiency of our job matchmaking. We've piloted actually AI career coaches, since we do provide, as I said, mentorship, and we do work with people that are coaches that we either hire or they, in some cases, volunteer for us. But we never have enough coaches for all the graduates we would like to support. So we're definitely keen on developing and scaling our AI pilot for career coaching. And these are just some examples that come to mind very sort of rapidly. We just now launched a curriculum and instruction AI principles manifesto. So we're trying to really position ourselves as thought leaders in the curriculum and instruction space when it comes to also the ethical elements of it, and how do we actually use AI internally, and how do we want to position ourselves when it comes to usage. So we do a lot of things, but at the, I would say very transparently, at the nascent phase, only for the past 2 years. So a lot of our work is pilot phase, but we do see a lot of room for improving the offering we have so we can help even more people.
Wonderful.
Well, first of all, very impressed to hear everything that Generation does and everything that you do, David, in this role. And it seems like a very needed and inspiring line of help for people around the world, kind of in any era and in any culture, in any context. But it seems particularly more urgent, particularly more stringent, given some of the concerns that we all have when we're in an era of a very disruptive technology like AI, where many people's jobs are replaced by AI, or where companies are facing very tough questions in terms of balancing profit and the well being of their employees, even their jobs. And there's also a lot of opportunity. And you've already kind of hinted at that, right? In the sense that people who are affected by this can nonetheless find other paths, perhaps paths that can even free them of ways in which they were working that now can be streamlined, replaced by technology, and therefore give them a chance to upskill, to reskill, to pursue something that perhaps it's even closer to their hearts.
Yeah, in an ideal scenario, yeah. But as we all know, we don't live in Hollywood movies, unfortunately, and reskilling takes a lot of time, and we see this. And even if we can manage to pull it off in 3 to 4 months, realistically, of course, we try to imbue into our learners this sort of a growth mindset and continuous learning mindset, because their learning doesn't stop with our program ending and then being placed in a job, and that's a lifelong journey. We try just to equip them with the sort of transversal skills that they can, in the right attitude, so they can continue this learning process. But it does take time, and we realized, even though we're one of the biggest NGOs in this space, that there's a lot more people that need our help, and we'll see even more in the coming years who are unemployed, because that really is a key part of the target audience we serve. Is 90+% are unemployed. Whilst I'm fully on board with you on the idea, as I already mentioned myself, that it can unlock many opportunities AI, we indeed see a generation. I want to put this very transparently out there. Our target audience is entry level workers, specifically placed in the tech sector, which, if you read any New Yorker, the New York Times article, it's entry level workers in the tech sector, which are at risk more than anybody else, if I may add so. And that's indeed something we've seen also in the amount of job opportunities we have for the people we help. They're less in the last 2 years. We realize it's not just because of AI. It's also down to economic volatility, the tariffs, which are still a thing, and but AI is one of them.
Right. I'm thinking about college graduates who would be taking those entry level positions. Would they then go straight from college into a program like yours to be ready for the workforce? Or is there something that can be done earlier? And how do we get that message out?
Yeah, I mean, we historically do work with also with college educated individuals, even though many of the people we have only high school education. So it's a category which is even more impacted. But indeed, in specific sector and specific sectors like tech, finance, everything that is numerical in particular, that can be that involves as a job administrative tasks initially, tasks for which you go through the ranks and learn. Those things are already being done quite effectively and efficiently with AI, in the hands of a middle manager who's open to learn and willing to do so. So all graduates that are now either graduating have graduated over the past few months or will graduate in a year in specific sectors like tech, finance, anything to do with customer service, which maybe is a profession for somebody with, in some cases, a business degree or not necessarily. These will be and already are impacted. And the only thing that I could recommend people doing, and I mean, practice what I preach, and we do so at Generation as well, is to learn how to use these AI tools. Because at the end of the day, and I recently even wrote a post about this on LinkedIn, about how the best opportunity for entry level workers is if they know how to use these tools at a really good level. And then if they're lucky enough that the employer, or the ideal company for them is a company in which the middle managers, for some reason, are not as open to change and open to learn these tools. Because the only way an entry level worker, which doesn't have the industry expertise and the organizational know-how, would be preferred over a middle manager is if that entry level worker has a really sort of off the charts AI literacy level. Because then that entry level worker can be twice or three times more productive than the middle manager with the right coaching.
What you were just explaining, David, made me wonder what are some of the things that are, as of yet, kind of uniquely human, right? That can differentiate and that can still have an employer kind of prefer a human hire versus the adoption of an AI tool that can perform that same task. And you mentioned experience, right? You also mentioned human intuition. And if I can add to that, I think that the ability to create human to human connection, the ability to build relationships, and all of these are kind of interrelated, right? It's something about this ineffable kind of skill, right? That may not be quite there yet with the technology. The other hand, I am aware of some developments in the world of AI, for example, agentic AI and different models that communicate with each other. By agentic AI, I'm referring specifically to these technologies and mechanisms by which the AI models will kind of self organize to go in a certain direction without having a pre existing human prompt. And that models human behavior even more than the more classical or older machine learning that we've all heard of or read about in the news. So all this is to say that, while I can see that there is a lot of perhaps uniquely human skills and abilities that one can still bring to a position, there is a lot that's going on behind the scenes in AI development, in the technology that is coming closer to the kind of flair or intuition, like predictive analytics. It's another area that comes to mind. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this tension.
Yeah, indeed, it does boil down to human experience, which you highlighted, and I also mentioned earlier. And maybe to just elaborate a bit on that, it's in this agentic AI space that is or has started to develop this year, and it's kind of in its early innings, and will probably be or remain a focus next year for most companies. The actual core part of the work is done by AI in its own time, which is now much more than a couple of minutes or a few seconds, might be even half an hour. But for that, what is required? A great set of initial prompts and somebody experienced enough to review the output, regardless of what that output is, if it's a report, an analysis, a presentation. And why would an employer still keep that experienced worker to review at this stage? For the simple fact, because that worker knows the organization industry well enough to understand its key audience better than an AI would. By just human experience, the AI can predict certain things, but taste, I think, would be probably a better word to incorporate both intuition and experience, because with experience comes intuition that then leads to taste in some sense. And in some industries, taste won't matter as much. But as long as the industry we're speaking of is has a deliverable something to do with the a mass market product or a service, taste will matter a lot. And people who have developed over years of experience a sense of taste, they will be in a prized position within that organization and just given more work to do that they could do even more efficiently with these AI tools as opposed to working with interns that in the past have provided them with these maybe outside the box ideas that they were like, okay, leveraging or repackaging to something that is more sellable or marketable.
One of the things that I wonder about is the speed of productivity and with AI tools, we're able to produce more and more and more and more. And I wonder about the concept of, getting over your skis if we're so focused on the productivity that we drive more and more, that we lose sight of those human capabilities that do help to round out this productivity. And just the sense, what we talk about here on the podcast when we talk about AI, the church's role in saying, hey, let's take a pause, let's breathe, let's ground ourselves, let's move at the speed of being human rather than moving at the speed of technology. So there's a lot of tension in between the great productivity of AI and what it means to be human, and how do we integrate those two? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely in a period in history in which the pace of change is unprecedented when it comes to, I think, the technological advancements we've seen. And that's maybe my biggest argument, that this time is different when people tell me this is just another industrial revolution and we've been fine and surviving and mostly thriving through all of the previous ones, albeit initially having a bit of a rough start for many people. That's the key gist to the whole argument, that this time is different, and it took us, if I remember correctly, from the invention of the light bulb to having electricity as a mass scale product, I think 40 years. It took the computer to be from a mainframe in a company to a personal computer, like 20 years. Then it took around 10 years, if I'm not mistaken, for the internet to be pervasive. And then most people expect it will take us just 5 years for AI to be pervasive, as long as you have a Wi-Fi and good connectivity. So that's not something humans are built for. We're creatures of habit. We're resistance to change. And funny enough, that actually might be our best chance now with this AI revolution, because I see most people are not disrupted from their work as fast as they could, because the technology is already there. It's just because both management and employees are resistant to change, and they will not just change the way they work overnight, even though in some cases it might be in their advantage. So nobody will really be able to tell you how this whole thing will pan out. What I usually do like to mention is that we will find out by, I estimate, 2027, 2028, the latest, if this is an AI revolution that will just continue to pick up momentum until at least the end of the decade or beyond, or if this is a bit more of an AI hype and we'll have some sort of a burst in the next 3 years that will then be followed still by maybe an exponential growth coming up 2030 onwards. There's these two scenarios I'm looking at currently, but for both, the pace of change outmatches two things: our capacity to understand how these tools are built. Because if you look into the space, most engineers at the top AI labs cannot fully explain how their LLMs choose different
Mm.
options from the data sets they've trained them on. And the second, which is more to do with my work, AI development outpaces the capacity of humans to learn how to use these tools, because there are new tools every other month almost. People are
Mhm.
just overwhelmed with the pace of development, and yeah, they feel left behind already, even though we're just, I think, 2 years into this revolution.
Mhm.
Joe, you were talking about the perspective of the church, right? In terms of pausing and reminding ourselves of our human pace and of the unique qualities that, we may lose if we just throw ourselves into this race for productivity with the machine, as it were. And David, you mentioned something about resistance to change, right? And how that can have kind of a silver lining in this situation. And if you have someone to kind of slow the process down just enough to be able to be strategic about it, I think that that not only helps businesses continue to grow, but it also helps at the individual level with workforce placement, with reskilling. That can happen also within the company. I'm thinking of a friend of mine who's a product manager, and her job was the first to go in her company because AI was immediately able to do exactly what she was doing. But fortunately, her company thought strategically about the people that they really valued. And they gave her the opportunity to become more of an evaluator and a quality controller, as it were, for what the AI was doing, what was her old job. And so she had the time, just a little bit of time, just a little bit of opportunity, even within the boundaries of her old organization, to reskill and to be able to not only keep her job, but be promoted, and for the company to still get a lot of value from having kept her.
As we close, we always ask our guests to give us a word of hope. And I think that's especially valuable today. It's really easy to think of all the doom and gloom of AI. But as we think about AI and the future of work, what word of hope do you have for us? And you've given a few nuggets along the way, but how would you summarize it?
It's perfect. It helps me to counterbalance some of the less optimistic things I said. I remain a tech optimist regardless of what I said because I know that the opportunities presented by technology and AI in particular can, if used ethically, wisely, and with humans at the center, exponentially increase everything from scientific discoveries to medicines and cures for all sorts of diseases so they can extend life on earth, they can maybe extend life beyond earth. There's a lot of potential, but in order to get to that potential, as I said, we might have to overcome a few hurdles along the way, and the better we prepare, the better we will be to overcome them with the least amount of damage, because damage will be there, be it physical damage or human damage. There will be people laid off. There will be people who will be impacted negatively. We just have to hopefully mediate those damages and focus on the incredible opportunity technology can provide us all to move humanity forward, not backward.
Mm. Thank you so much for your time today, David.
Thank you.
It was such a pleasure to have you. And thank you, Sonia, as always, for joining us.
Thank you.
Friends, I want to take a moment just to say thank you to the Reverend Jo Nygaard Owens for the amazing work that she has done as our pastor for digital ministry. So much of what we have built here at the Cathedral has been Jo's good work. This podcast has been such a reflection of Jo's talents and skills. And while we will miss her, we're so grateful for all that she's given to the Cathedral. And you'll hear her from time to time. We'll have her back with us. And we wish her well in her new endeavors. Jo is a wonderful friend and a great creator, and we're blessed to call her a part of our Cathedral family. Moving forward, you'll hear more from all of the clergy here on our podcast. You're going to hear more from me, and I'm especially excited about that. I think the podcast that we're building here at the Cathedral is an important one. I think we have important work to do, and with your help, I know that we'll do it. So God bless you all, and I look forward to spending time with you in the future. The phrases "do no harm" and "treat the whole person" are fundamental principles of the medical field. They also resonate deeply with pastoral care rooted in the Christian tradition. How do these principles guide the work of our doctors and our spiritual leaders, especially in today's highly technologized environment? In 2 weeks, I hope you'll join our canon missioner, Leonard Hamlin, and our senior advisor to the dean, Dr. Sonia Komen, who had the honor and pleasure to explore this very topic with Dr. Michael DeBaun, the internationally renowned physician-scientist whose advocacy and research led to fundamental advances in the medical care of children. Dr. DeBaun was recently elected to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. Thank you for listening to Crossroads, and until next time, many blessings. If the digital offerings of the Cathedral enrich your daily life, please consider becoming a supporter today by making a gift at cathedral.org/inspire.